Alright, non-car video today. So a little while back, I went ahead and got one of these little U.S. mini toolboxes to match my box. And I turned it into a Bluetooth speaker. So you can see we have two 5.5-inch speakers in there. This thing runs off of a Milwaukee M18 battery. And then down below we got our little power switch and our controls. And this one turned out pretty good. Not perfect, I learned a lot doing it. But we're going to go ahead and do another one today. Christmas is coming up, so I'm going to go ahead and make my dad a black one. So to do that, we need obviously a mini toolbox. So there we have a brand new black one. We need an amp. So this came off Amazon. There it is right there. We need a power switch. This came off Amazon as well. And there it is in there. We need our power source. If you're just plugging it into the wall, you can just go ahead and get a cord and wire it in. But we're going to be using the Milwaukee again. So here it is. They make these for all the different types of batteries, DeWalt, Makita, anything you can think of. But he has Milwaukee, so we're going to do that. And then finally, we have a set of 4-inch speakers. We're going to try the 4 inches on these ones. The 5.5s did fit, but they were a little tight, so I think these will actually work a little bit better. So there's everything we need. We'll go ahead and get started on it. A couple other things that you might need to pick up, they just depend on your situation. So if you notice on the gray one where our power cords come off the Milwaukee battery and go in, I just drilled a hole right there and ran the wires through. We're going to do the same thing on the black one. However, we are going to add a grommet into that little hole right there. You don't have to do this. However, it does look a little nicer. It keeps the wires from getting cut easier. And this kit's like $6 from Harbor Freight. It's got a whole bunch of different sizes in it, so I went ahead and picked it up. Also, depending on what speakers you buy, they might or might not come with wires and terminals. The gray one, they did come with the speakers. However, this time they did not, so I just ran to Advanced, picked up a couple of these little female connectors right here. I got 2 sizes, and I also picked up a little bit of wire. You might not need this. It just depends on what kind of speakers you buy. I did have to buy them for this. The first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and disassemble the box. So pull the drawers and all the little drawer liners out. You see I have everything sitting right here. And there's the little drawers underneath. To pull them out, there's just a little black lever right there. You're just going to flip them down or up depending on the side. And they slide right out, no big deal. And then I went ahead and put masking tape over the slides on the inside just to help keep any metal dust out of them, make it a little bit easier to clean up later. After that, you're going to want to go ahead and start laying out the holes for your speakers. So this is going to be a little different depending on what speakers you buy. But what I did here is I just measured the width of the box this way, and then I divided that number by 2 and scribed a little line in the center of the box all the way down. So you can see my little line there, and maybe you can see it, my little line right there. So our speakers are going to sit centered this way. And then the lengthwise, what I did is my speakers, I have these little plastic pieces that sit over top of them. So I took the width of the box, it was like 10.720 I think, and then I measured the diameter of these. They were like 5.130 I believe. So 10.720 minus 5.130 minus another 5.130 because we have 2 of them. And that gave me like 450 thousandths, I believe. And then I divided that number by 3 because we want 3 even gaps. 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And so that way, these things should sit centered up in the slot this way. So then once all that was done, I just went ahead and drew my lines. So you didn't want to do the 5.130 because we want to, here's the little speaker right here, we want to measure this diameter right here. So you see there's a little lip. We want it to sit on that lip. So I measured this and got, I believe like 3.825. So I divided that number by 2, set up my little compass. This is actually my dad's compass from architect school, which is kind of fitting for this project. So I set up for 1.9, whatever it was. And then I had my little center line that I drew. And I just went ahead, set it up, traced it all the way around, filled in with a Sharpie, that way it's a little bit easier to see. And now, if we set these little plastic pieces on and just kind of roughly line them up here, there's a fairly even 150 thousandths gap between the two of them here, between this one and the edge of the box. Hopefully you can see that right there. And the same thing on this side. It might look a little off in the video, but that's just because they're very roughly sitting on there. So now that that's done, we have our two 3.875 or 825 holes drawn out that we want to drill out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the drill press, and you could use a hole saw if you want. I don't have one for this size, so I'm just going to take a standard drill bit and kind of drill right here along the inside of this line right here, all the way around, and then we'll have just a couple little tabs in between the holes. We can go ahead and cut those out with a die grinder. It should come out a lot easier than like trying to cut it out by hand or anything like that. Now that we have all of our holes drilled out inside of our marked circle, I'm just going to go ahead and take a die grinder with a cutoff wheel and cut the little tabs in between the holes all the way around. Alright, here's what we're looking like. Now that we got those cut out, you can see it still looks pretty rough in there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take my banding shears, or whatever you want to call these. I call them banding shears. So I'm just going to take those and go around the edge and clean it up a little bit. There we have it. Our speakers are sitting in there nice and flush. This doesn't need to look super perfect. We're going to cover all this up with the Toolbox liner, but you want it to look pretty nice. So we're good to go there. And then if we set the plastic pieces in, like that and that, you can see the lid still shuts nice and flat. So we're good there. I'm going to go ahead and pull these plastic pieces out. I'll mark our 4 mounting holes, drill them out, and we're going to use M4 nuts and bolts. You can use self-tapping screws, but I just got a bunch of M4 stuff laying around. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I've got my mounting holes drilled out. I'm going to be installing M4 rib nuts in them, just like that. Before I put these in though, I want to go ahead and set my drawer liner in and mark the holes. This way, we'll do it before the rivets are in. That way it's easier to mark the mounting holes on the liner. So I'll flip it upside down like this. I'll get a gray Sharpie, trace out the 2 big holes and the 8 little mounting holes, and then we can go ahead and install the rib nuts. All right, I got our 8 rib nuts installed. The next thing I went ahead and did was marked and drilled our 3 holes right there for our power adapter, and then I went ahead and drilled 1 big hole right there for our wires to go through. So here's our Milwaukee power adapter. I just set it on there, marked the little holes, drilled them out. We got our 3 right there, so that's going to bolt up like that. And then our wires right here are going to go through this hole. So I'm going to go ahead and put the grommet in here. I'll be using the 5/8 one from the kit. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean this thing up. There's metal dust all throughout it. So I'll clean it up, pull the tape off, mount the speakers up, and then we should be good to go to start doing all the wiring on this. One other thing, when it comes to cutting out the little top liner mat right here, the big holes, I'm just going to use a utility knife, not too bad. However, these smaller holes, I have these little punch stamp things right here. So these are made for like leather. I think these also came from Harbor Freight. They're just a couple dollars. They're pretty cheap. And so we'll just take that, line it up over where we want our hole to be right there, and then we'll just hit it with a hammer a couple times. As you can see, it punches the hole out nice and clean right there. So I'll go ahead, cut all these out, cut the holes, put the speakers in, clean everything up, and then we'll come back. So here's our power adapter bolted in and our little grommet installed. We're good to go there. If we spin it around, you can see we have both speakers and our toolbox mat laying in there. These aren't bolted in yet. I need to pull them back out and connect the wires to it before I bolt them down for good. So I didn't bolt them in yet. One thing I didn't talk about is the top drawer on here. So on the gray one, let me see if I can get this drawer open. So to get these 5.5-inch speakers to fit, I had to cut out the whole entire floor right there. You can see my finger poking through the bottom. I had to cut out the whole floor and most of the back of it just to get these ones to fit. On these ones, I got lucky. The whole drawer fits in there. You can't open it, but it does fit in there. So if you're using these exact speakers, you don't have to cut the drawer out. If you're using different speakers, you might have to cut out a little bit more. So on the gray one, I just started small and slowly started cutting more and more and more out until it fit. This one, as you can see, that's as far as it'll open right there, but there's a floor in the bottom of it. So this one will work without it. I am going to drill 2 holes in it. That way the wires can run down through and we can wire it into the bottom drawer. So I need to do that, but we're good to go for now. So I'll go ahead and grab the bottom drawer and then we can start drilling that out for the amp and the button and everything else. So here's our little power switch we're going to be installing, and here's our amp. So we have these little knobs. There's an actual knob that goes on over top of these. So these are 800 thousandths on center. So I just set my calipers at 800 thousandths, scribed 3 lines, and then I scribed another line for this one in line with them. So there we have our 3 holes for the amp, and our power button's going to go right there. You can put them wherever you want on here. Also, some guys will run a voltmeter on here. I'm not putting one on. I'm just doing the power and the 3 knobs. So, but if you want to add one, you could do it over here somewhere. So we're going to do our power button right here and our 3 holes right there. I'm going to go ahead and drill these out to 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to use a step bit to open this up to whatever this diameter is. I think it's like 5/8. So we'll go ahead and do that. So here we have our power button and our amp installed. Everything looks good. And if we look at the front, there's our power button and there's our knobs. Like I said, there's still knobs that stick over top of these, but we'll wait to put them on. So we're good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the speakers out of here and then we can start wiring those up. So we're going to take our wire. This is 18 gauge. To be honest, I kind of wanted to get something a little thinner, but it's all I could find. It'll work. We're going to put our little terminal on just like that. And then we'll just use our crimpers and crimp it. And there we have it. So we're going to go ahead and do 4 of those and then we'll connect them up. So we got our speakers bolted in. They're sitting in there nice and rigid, and we have our 4 lines attached to our speakers. So we have a left and a right. I use black wire for both, whatever. I did put a little bit of electrical tape on the power side so I knew which one's which. So we have our left side power, left side ground, and our right side power, right side ground. So that's good. Now we need to wire up our power. So for our switch, it comes with this little plug that goes in the back. We have 5 different color wires on the back, and it comes with this wiring diagram. There is 4 different ways to wire it. So you got 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can do whichever way you like. We're going to do this one right here, number 1. So if we look at the top there, in the button's normal state, the device is off, and the LED light on the button is also off, and then when you press it, it turns the device and the LED light on. If you want to wire it a different way, you're more than welcome to, but we're going to do it this way right here. So if we look at the diagram, the power source right here is going to be our Milwaukee battery, the plug's in the middle, and the little light bulb on the right is going to be our amplifier. So we need to connect our red on the Milwaukee battery to the green. Our black needs to connect to the black on the button as well as the black on the amp. And then our red and blue, we're going to connect to the red on the amp. So we'll go ahead and wire all that up and then we'll come back. All right, we have our plug for our amp wired in and the plug for our power button. We're good to go there. You can use butt connectors or whatever way you want. Personally, I'm a solder guy, so I soldered mine in, but you can do whatever. So we're good to go there. The last thing we need to do is wire in our speaker wires to our amp. So if you look on the back, it tells you right there which one's which. Pretty simple. Left positive, left negative, right positive, right negative. They go right there on the top side. So I'm going to go ahead and strip these, put a little terminal on the end, and then screw them in. And then we should be able to plug both of our plugs in and test everything out. So we've got everything wired up and put back together. There's just these little trim knobs that snap over top of the existing ones, so they just snap on real easy. Those are on, and then there's also a little cover that goes on the top and bottom of the amp. You can see it right there. It just screws on, so I put that on real quick, and we're good to go. We're about ready to fire this thing up and test it. You see I got a battery on the back, but one thing I want to talk about real quick, I made this mistake on the gray box, and I swore I was going to learn from it and not do it on this one, and I got caught up and did it anyways. So I fixed it, so let me just show you that real quick. So on this gray box, if you notice, see that gap right there of the drawer? This thing's all the way shut. It's not going to shut anymore. And the reason is, When I drilled this hole back here for the wires to go through, I put it too low. So now when this bottom drawer is all the way shut, these wires are actually pinching between the back of the drawer and the back of the toolbox. So you need to move your hole up a little bit higher than this one. And on this one, I got in a hurry, and let me grab you a little bit of light. I put the grommet too low again. So whenever I put this whole thing together, the drawer wouldn't completely shut. So I moved it up here. I'm a little bummed out that we got a grommet right there that, I mean, it's not being used for anything. It looks kind of dumb, but it is what it is, I guess. So when you do this, put your hole up higher. That way your drawer will shut all the way. So now, if we spin this thing all the way around, you can see there's our gap right there. You can see there is still a little bit of a gap. You can see that red connector back there. I checked like all these toolboxes at Harbor Freight, and they all seem to have a little bit of a gap right there. I guess that's just how they're made. However, this bottom drawer, you can hear it when I shut it. That's the magnet on the back of the drawer hitting the back of the toolbox. So this thing's not going to shut any farther than it currently is. So that little bit of a gap is just how they're made, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, they were all like that. I couldn't find any of them that did not have a little bit of a gap here. However, this looks way better than that gap right there. So if you're going to do it, make sure you put your hole up higher for your wire to go through. So we can go ahead and test this thing out. We're going to go ahead and turn it on. I've already connected my phone to this. I already tested it out. It does work. So we'll press the little power button right here. You'll see the light come on, and then you should hear it connect to my phone. So there it is. Let me find some non-copyright music that I can play, and I'll show you how it sounds. But there we have it. I think it sounded pretty good. I didn't really mess with the bass and treble too much, so you might be able to adjust these and actually get it to sound even better. I don't know. I just kind of left them where they were. However, I think it sounds pretty good, especially for these $40 speakers. If you're real obsessed with audio, you could always like upgrade these speakers and get a little bit better ones. However, I think these ones are pretty good, especially for $40. That was on about 50% volume too, so these definitely have a lot more volume left in them. They can actually get super loud. So I'm happy with those. The Milwaukee battery, so this is the same battery I used to set this one and that one up. And then the other day I was down here, I had this one running for about 4 hours just down here messing around. And this is the same battery. So 4 hours running this one and then setting both these up. We'll say maybe 5 hours of runtime on this battery. It was fully charged when I started. And if we look at it now, there's still 3 bars on there. So we'll say what, 75% battery? I think that's pretty good. So super happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing all cleaned up, wrapped up, and ready to go for Christmas. Hopefully my old man likes it. I think he'll like it a lot. So super happy with it. I think I learned a lot doing that one, and it helped this one come out even better than that one. So super happy with that. It's a couple days before Christmas, so I'll probably wait to upload this until like Christmas Day or maybe the day after Christmas, just that way he doesn't see it and ruin the surprise for him. But I know this isn't our typical car video. However, I figured just for Christmas, mix things up, and maybe somebody would be interested in how this thing was made. So if you stuck around this far, I appreciate you guys watching. If you're seeing this right when this comes out, Merry Christmas, y'all. Happy New Year's. I appreciate all the support this year, and we'll be back next year with more car videos. So I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.